Do you get it now?
Let's see.
1, 2.
Yes, I get it now.
Oh, good. Check the audio again on a PC to make sure we get it right.
Yeah, audio is very good.
Audio is very good. Great. All right. All right. As usual, I'm going to wait to get a handful of people. Then I will start the broadcast proper. Pen, are you still there?
Yes. You can close now. I'm here. I can get you.
Okay.
Well. So
all right. Great. Fine. All right.
Yeah.
This is going to be a little long broadcast.
Okay, great.
Give me water in the glass. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Ambazonians. Again, I am your Communication Secretary, Chris Ano. As usual, I'm going to keep you waiting for a little while until we hit 1,000 people. 1,000 people live watching. And as you join in, again, as usual, I'd like you to share the link. Share the link on your Facebook. Share the link on all your social media platforms. Share the link wherever the human beings can watch. Share the links on WhatsApp. Share the links on Twitter. Share the link on every spot where you can. And once we hit 1,000 people, I'm going to start the broadcast proper. And please let me know where you are watching from. Just indicate on your screen if you are watching from ground zero. Let me know you are watching from ground zero. Wherever you are coming in from, let me know, please. We have over 200 people live now in 2 minutes. We want to hit 1,000 people in at least 10 minutes. We have done that before. We've done that in the past all the time. Once we hit 1,000 people, I won't hold you waiting. I won't have you waiting any longer. So please share the link, and let's get on the screen watching. Please share the link. We're having almost 300 people, We need at least 1,000 people within 10 minutes to start a broadcast proper. Share the link and share the area where you are watching in from, where you are tuning in from. I see Germany, Sammy Brown. I see somebody from Victoria. Stop calling it Limbe. Call it Victoria. I see Enjoy from Victoria. I see George from Ground Zero. Says he's Albert Mokong. That's interesting. I see Prissy from Germany. And I see Bamenda Vos watching from Hessig. That should be Germany. You're correct. I see Divine from Vancouver. I see Abbott from Cape Town. I see Elvis from Edmonton, Canada. I see Decap from the homeland, Ground Zero. I see John from Amberland. I see Emmanuel from Dubai. Please, we have just a little over 300 people live, 4 minutes gone. Within 10 minutes, please, we need 1,000 people. I don't just want to come here and start broadcasting to 300 people and then the purpose is not achieved. So please, share the link on your WhatsApp, on your timeline, Facebook timeline, share the link. And let's start the broadcast in the next 5 minutes as we hit 1,000 people. But the number isn't growing enough. So please, if you are joining into the broadcast, share the link of the broadcast on your Facebook, wherever you can share, where people can watch. We need at least 1,000 people watching before I start the broadcast proper. Please share the link. We have 400 people right now, 400 people watching live right now, 600 more to go before we start the broadcast proper. So please keep on sharing the link and let me know where you are tuning in from. I see Judson from Finland, and I see Mbu watching in from Bamenda. I see somebody from Jakarta, Foncam, watching from Jakarta. I see Fru watching from Amberland. I see and so many others watching from different destinations. So please share the link, share the link, share the link, share the link. Let's get at least 1,000 people live. Let's get at least 1,000 people live. We have just a little over 400 right now. Please, if you are joining, share the link. Share the link, share the link. Let's get enough people joining us for the broadcast, please. I see Emi tuning in from Abu Dhabi. I see David from Maryland. I see Fomunyo from Dubai. I see Kenyo watching from Ground Zero, precisely in Bamenda. I see Wesley who's tuning in from Sweden. Please share the link as you join. Share the link as we join. We have not hit 500 yet. This is really slow these times. Please, we have hit 1,000 people in the past in 8 minutes, a little over 8 minutes. We have over 500 now in 7 minutes. So please, we need to hit 1,000 people for me to start the broadcast proper. So please, if you are joining in, share the link. I see Diodone from Amberland, Ground Zero. And I also see Natalie is joining in from Ground Zero. And I see Emmanuel joining in from Iniwe in Anambra State, Nigeria. I see Ngwa is joining from Boston, Massachusetts. And I see Elochi is also joining from Canada. Please, let's hit 1,000. 1,000 people in 8 minutes. We have now almost 600 people live online. We need 1,000 people to join us for this broadcast proper to start. So please share the link in your groups, in your Facebook, everywhere you can share in the social media. Let's get the people joining. We have over 600, less than 400 people to go in 2 minutes to hit 1,000. Please share the link. Share the link. I will not start the broadcast proper until we hit 1,000 people, and I hope we can do that in the next 1.5 minutes. In the next 1.5 minutes, please, let's hit 1,000 people for me to start a broadcast. I do not want, by the end of the day, by the time the broadcast is over, most of the time we have over 2,000 people watching live. And I hate to start it with 500 people and then 1,500 and more join only after. So we want to get as many people as possible to join from the very beginning of the broadcast. So please share the link. We are almost 700 to go. Almost 700 people to go. We have to hit at least 1,000 people for the broadcast to start. So please, if you are joining again, keep on sharing the link. Make phone calls to friends. Some don't know that I am live already. Some think I was going to come as late as I used to do in most of the broadcasts. But most often, they are due to technical problems. I am live now. Make the phone call. Share the links. Share the text. Tweet it, and let others join the broadcast, please. We have less than 300 people to go before we hit 1,000 people. We are over 700 now. I see Jennifer tuning in all the way from Babanki. That is wonderful. And I see Marina watching from, I can't pronounce the first word there, but you are watching from Germany. I see India coming in from Belgium. And I see Munzu is watching from Maryland, and I see Mancho is coming in from Edison in South Africa. Please let me know where you're coming from. I see Berinyu from Ground Zero. Thank you. Please share the link. We have almost 800 right now. That will be 200 to go. 200 to go. Please, if you are joining in, share the link. We have over 800, less than 100 to go. I'm sorry, less than 200 to go. So please, if you are joining in, share the link. Again, I just don't want to start the broadcast and then at the end of the broadcast, you have over 2,000 people watching and they missed what we did from the beginning. And that is why when we announce a broadcast, let's try to show up on time so we don't miss any part of the broadcast. So we're almost hitting 900, almost hitting 900. Share the link as you join. Share the link as you join. Some people are joining and they're not sharing the link. If everybody, the 866 people who have joined were just sharing to one friend, who probably would have hit the number long ago. So some people are not sharing. Please share and let's start the broadcast proper. Share right now, share right now. Let me know where you are coming in from, please. If you are coming from Ground Zero, I'd like to see your name. Wherever you're tuning in from, let's know where you are tuning in from. We have less than 100 people to go. In fact, we have less than 70 people to go. So please, thank you so very much. This broadcast is very, very important because it has to deal with the policy position of your interim government. And it is very important that the things that we bring out, they are educational, informative. This is not entertainment television. It is educational. And so we want everybody to participate and got to understand the message that we bring to you. Because we have to stay our message in this revolution. That is why it is very important. Do not tune in to be entertained. I am not an entertainer. I am a broadcaster, and I bring you valuable information that will educate you on what this revolution is about and what it is not. And so please, I want you to take this piece of information very, very seriously. And again, I will be responding to the message, the audio message, which Dr. Simon Munzu, who is one of us, put out a few days ago. I think that was sometime last week. We felt it very, very necessary to reply, to respond to that message. And I hope that you will stay put, watch, and listen, and be educated as to what we are in the interim government and what we are not. We have hit 1,100 people right now. And I want to say I have no more reason to keep you waiting. I have to go into the broadcast. However, as I go into the broadcast, please keep on sharing the link. Keep on sharing the link to everyone that you think can come on board right now. Share the link on your Facebook, on your Twitter, on your any social media platform, on WhatsApp. Share the link there. Again, this is a response, and we actually title it, "We request Dr. Munzu to answer us." That is the subject of this presentation. We request Dr. Munzu to answer us. Fellow Amazonians, on the 7th of February 2018, Dr. Simon Munzu issued an audio message in the social media in which he introduced himself and spoke about the crisis prevailing in what he called the air country of Cameroon since October 2016. The purpose of the audio was to announce to the people of the southern Cameroons, which he insisted throughout to refer to as the people of the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, the fact that they will be called for dialogue in 2018, that they must not be caught unprepared, and that in order to adopt a common position towards the dialogue and constitute an authoritative voice that represents all Southern Cameroonians, a preparatory conference will be called in the near future within the Southern Cameroons. Again, I am doing the reported speech here. I'm telling you what Dr. Simon Munzu said. Dr. Munzu announced the criteria for participation in the preparatory conference, which will be convened by a conference organizing committee drawn from a broad spectrum of Southern Cameroonians. Dr. Munzu said the Anglophone Cameroon Dialogue Forum, the ACDF, was working towards dialogue, and that those who want to participate should join the ACDF in preparing for the frank and inclusive dialogue, which alone, he said, could find a lasting solution to what he called the Anglophone crisis. In order to provide a background to this announcement, Dr. Munzu first made some comments about the history and the current crisis. Dr. Munzu said, on October 1, 1961, that the Southern Cameroons united with La République du Cameroun to form a new state. He said that for 56 years, the populations of the two peoples have lived harmoniously and boasted of their country as being a land of peace and social cohesion. He said that in their country, there has never been any problem of living together, that it was a matter of concern that today young people are being set up to kill one another. It was unacceptable that the military should kill civilians or civilians killing the military, he said. He added that the people of the Northwest and Southwest provinces have suffered enough and life must return to normal. He quoted Mr. Bia's apparent belief that dialogue has always been and will always remain the best means of resolving problems. Dr. Munzu added that the crisis has shown that only a frank, genuine, and inclusive dialogue could find a lasting solution to the problem. He added that the Anglophone crisis is manifested through the persistent domination, marginalization, and assimilation of Anglophones in all areas of national life. That the slogan of the one and indivisible Cameroon should not be allowed to impede dialogue among Cameroonians, and of course also that the slogan was only borrowed from other constitutions, that the oneness and indivisibility of the nation does not depend on the unitary form of the state. Dr. Munzu asked why we cannot tolerate the Anglophone and Francophone diversity, the way we tolerate religious and other kinds of diversities, that the people of the southern Cameroons have been pushed to the clamor for independence by the decades of arrogant dismissal of the Anglophone problem by the ruling elite in Yaoundé. That Anglophones are not terrorists. They are fighting for justice and equity for their people. Their fight, he said, is for the last 15 months has exposed the depth and gravity of the problem both at home and abroad. Dr. Munzu warned that they should not yield to the temptation of pursuing their objectives through violence, which would only increase the suffering of those for whom they fight. They should give, now referring to Anglophone, Munzu said they should give dialogue a chance. He went on to say his so-called Anglophone problem is a domestic problem that should be resolved among Cameroonians, although international actors who have called for genuine dialogue ought to be part of the process as observers, facilitators, or guarantors of its implementation. He added that the search for meaningful dialogue was not an affair of the politicians, but concerned all and sundry. This, in brief, is what Dr. Munzu said in his audio. Fellow Ambazonians, before we examine the content of Dr. Munzu's audio, it is important to observe that Dr. Munzu is one of the few southern Cameroonians who can be allowed today to hold a meeting of southern Cameroonians, such as the preparatory conference he is proposing within the southern Cameroons. At a time when the colonial forces are hunting down every single southern Cameroonian who stands up for the fight of southern Cameroonians to own their destiny, to speak for themselves, to think for themselves, and to decide for themselves. Isn't it, or is it not altogether strange that Dr. Munzu should be given the latitude by the same colonial regime to go about organizing a meeting of southern Cameroonians in the name of preparing for a dialogue that has been revealed exclusively only to him? Why is he different from any other southern Cameroonian? Does this suggest anything to you? Why would Dr. Munzu purport to lecture Ambazonians about dialogue and even quote Mr. Bia's words when dialogue does not depend on Ambazonians, when dialogue depends entirely on the colonial regime and those giving the lectures? Dr. Simon Munzu has certainly not forgotten the Bamenda Proclamation read by himself, in which the people of the southern Cameroons gave the Francophone regime a reasonable time. Again, I repeat, we gave the Francophone regime a reasonable time to reply, and which after more than 24 years has never been replied to. Dr. Munzu now, has not forgotten the call for dialogue by Kofi Annan and by the Banjul Commission in 2009, which Mr. Bia has snubbed. Has he? Let him go and lecture Mr. Bia about dialogue, not the good people of the southern Cameroons. Of course not. Any attentive listener to Dr. Munzu? I am sorry, please. There's an interruption here. We are assimilated in every aspect of Cameroon life, that is the southern Cameroons, that Ambazonians are not terrorists, but are fighting for justice and equity, and that the search for a lasting solution to the crisis cannot be left in the hands of politicians alone. I'm sorry, I have to go back to this. However, what we completely reject and disagree with Dr. Munzu's claims that the Southern Cameroons united with the Republic of Cameroon on October 1st, 1961. We refuse that. The Southern Cameroons problem is not an international problem, but a domestic problem of the Republic of Cameroon. That the people of the Southern Cameroons have lived in harmony with the Republic of Cameroon. We refuse that. We reject that. For 56 years we have not. The insinuation that the people of the Southern Cameroons have no right to self-defense, a right granted in international law. Munzu's erroneous belief that it is possible at this moment in our history to constitute an authoritative voice that can represent the Southern Cameroon's people in any dialogue with the Republic of Cameroon through a conference within the Southern Cameroons. His underlying assumption is that the territory and the people of the Southern Cameroons were created by God to be eternally bound to La Republique du Cameroon. Every one of you listening to me right now, or listening to Dr. Munzu, would note that he has fundamentally taken the position of our colonizers. And he has chosen the worst moment in history to attempt to reconstitute a constituent assembly that can authoritatively represent Ambazonians in any dialogue with Cameroon, La République du Cameroun. Dr. Munzu's terminology is that of the colonizer. He never referred to the Southern Cameroons in his speech or audio as a problem, but to the so-called Anglophone problem, not to the Southern Cameroonians or Ambazonians, but to the people of the Northwest and Southwest regions of Cameroon. In other words, Dr. Munzu wasn't proud enough to refer to you and me as Ambazonians, but we are simply people of the Northwest and Southwest. And not once did he mention the word Ambazonia. He denies that the Southern Cameroon's problem is an international problem, meaning in effect that he has taken the position of La République du Cameroun that the Southern Cameroons is a legal part of its territory, a legal part of La République du Cameroun's territory. The bone of contention between the people of the Southern Cameroons and, of course, La République du Cameroun is clear and simple. It is that the territory of the Southern Cameroons belongs in its entirety to the people of the Southern Cameroons. That the people of the Southern Cameroons are the only people who have a right to govern themselves within their own territory. That just as every country claims the right to govern itself on the basis of having its own territory and international boundaries, so it must be with the Southern Cameroons. And that La République du Cameroun is in violation of international law and its international boundaries by illegally crossing them to impose herself on the people of the Southern Cameroons. If Dr. Munzu rejects this position and sides with the colonizers, how then can any Ambazonian trust him? Is he not simply being paid, perhaps, to play the colonizers' game? Dr. Munzu seems to have been reliably informed or instructed from some quarters that a national dialogue is going to take place in 2018, for which he calls on the people of the Northwest and Southwest of Cameroon to begin preparing for it. Dr. Munzu says they should not find themselves unprepared when they are eventually invited for this dialogue. Why would anyone planning genuine dialogue announce it exclusively to Dr. Munzu? Does it sound credible to anyone that Dr. Munzu's preparatory conference for a national dialogue could end up being a mere waste of time, money, and energy for those who managed to make it? The only way in which Dr. Munzu could commit Southern Cameroonians to undertake such a risky venture at this moment in the unsafe atmosphere of Cameroon is that he has confidential information on this matter. But from who? That is what we are yet to know. Dr. Munzu's preparatory conference is one way of constituting representatives who can speak for the entire people of the Southern Cameroons in the supposed national dialogue. Is this the only solution or the most logical one at this time? Why has Munzu not called for a referendum, since it is almost impossible for the vast majority of Southern Cameroonians nationalists to be present at the preparatory conference? How is Dr. Munzu going to get this interim government to sit down in this preparatory conference to participate? Dr. Munzu has not so much as suggested a United Nations organized referendum as a means of resolving the problem of determining the opinion of Ambazonians on their future. He hasn't. Dr. Munzu prefers a domestic dialogue with La République du Cameroon. He knows only too well what the result of a referendum would be. Yes, he suggests dialogue in which, as he says, international actors who have recommended genuine dialogue ought to be involved. Now, what if La République du Cameroon does not allow them to attend, as is sure from its gimmicks and long-standing rejection of dialogue? How many people in exile or who are being persecuted by the occupying forces in our territory precisely for their opinions on the crisis will be able to attend Dr. Munzu's preparatory conference? How many people? What is the assurance for their security? Almost all genuine nationalists have been driven abroad, and if they don't attend, what will emerge as those constituted to represent Southern Cameroonians? Dr. Munzu is all too aware that hardly anyone from abroad, especially those who are actively campaigning for the position of independence, those who represent the position of this interim government, which Munzu rejects, will attend. Nobody will. Will their voice be excluded? And what if a dialogue is held and it fails? Will La République du Cameroon not behave exactly as it did with the representatives of the lawyers and teachers by arresting them? How can Dr. Munzu believe that at this critical moment, when the occupying regime is hunting down Southern Cameroonians, even going so far as to corrupt a foreign government to turn over fleeing refugees to it, there can be any meaningful representation of the Southern Cameroonians in the diaspora in his conference? It is impossible. The conference seems to have been cunningly designed to exclude the overwhelming majority of the independentists or the interim government or everyone out there who believe in the sovereignty of the Southern Cameroons. In the current circumstance, it is abundantly clear that there cannot be any meaningful representation of the people of the Southern Cameroons by those being allowed by the colonial regime to stay and hold their conferences within the occupied territory of Ambazonia. They are either sponsored by the regime or they are in its good books. If the supposed dialogue were to hold in a natural country, in a neutral country, at the AU or at the United Nations, it would be possible for those in the diaspora to attend without any fears. A referendum or dialogue under international auspices in a neutral and safe country are therefore the only viable solutions to ascertain the opinion of the people of the southern Cameroons on their relations with La République du Cameroon. Neither the ACDF of Dr. Munzu nor any other body based in Cameroon at this moment can come up with a representative body for the people of the southern Cameroons. And we want the SDF leaders to hear this too. The monarchs should hear this. Munzu has laid down conditions which the occupying regime should fulfill to permit the southern Cameroons diaspora to attend his preparatory conference. The first is that the colonial regime should release all prisoners and those awaiting trial anywhere in Cameroon in connection with the so-called Anglophone crisis. Now that is his appellation of our struggle. He calls it Anglophone crisis. The second is that Munzu, he says, Cameroon should declare a general amnesty ahead of the conference so that those on voluntary or forced exile may return home without fear of arrest or prosecution. First, if Dr. Munzu's preparatory conference is to go ahead, should we understand that the colonial regime must first comply with these conditions? What if it does not comply? Will Dr. Munzu wait until the conditions are fulfilled before he or the organizing committee calls the preparatory conference? Even if the regime were to say it grants a general amnesty, what will those words mean? We know what the promises and words of the colonizers are worth. Ayuk stood before the United Nations and swore that La République du Cameroon would never use its numbers to annex the southern Cameroons. They put it in Article 47 of the United Nations, in what they call their unilateral federal constitution, that the federal structure of the country was holy and would never be changed. Of course, we know that is not the same today. Did they keep their word? What makes us so confident that if they give their word this time, they would not arrest or prosecute anyone? How many people are prepared to take that risk? Can Dr. Munzu tell us what makes him believe that they would change their consistent pattern of behavior? Let us even assume that they are able to change their consistent pattern of behavior. How do those abroad leave their jobs at short notice to attend the preparatory conference? What happens if, after all the expenditure and preparation, the colonial regime does not call for the supposed dialogue for which the preparations are being made, or insists that the dialogue will not involve the international community? What happens if that is what La République du Cameroon insists? Unless Dr. Munzu has been given special assurances that the dialogue must hold and that the international community will be involved, it would be extremely doubtful that anyone, including myself, if I were invited, would be willing to spend my time and money without any assurances of a dialogue. And if the regime is interested, if the Republic of Cameroon is interested in dialogue, what prevents it from announcing it publicly so that both sides can prepare accordingly? Why must it be a third party like Dr. Munzu calling for dialogue? Why would they review the information exclusively to Dr. Simon Munzu? It is clear, therefore, that the position of the interim government that any genuine dialogue must be held in a safe and neutral country under international auspices remains the only viable option. In connection to the issue of dialogue, it is extremely interesting and at the same time embarrassing that anybody talking or preparing for genuine and inclusive dialogue should so easily forget the inevitable place for the Southern Cameroonian nationalists and liberation movements such as the Southern Cameroon's National Council, SCAPO, Ambazonia, the interim government, the Southern Cameroon Youth League, and all others which have been fighting over the years for the justice, for justice to the Southern Cameroons. We do not know their place in Dr. Munzu's conference. It was precisely some of these groups which through the court cases in Abuja and Banjul got the African Commission on Human and People's Rights to declare the people of the Southern Cameroons a people under the African Charter and to call for constructive dialogue to resolve the Southern Cameroon's problem. How is it that Dr. Munzu has not thought of them? The SCNC, the SCYLs, CAPO, and Bazonia groups, how come he hasn't thought about them? He has carefully adopted the colonial regime's policy of trying to ignore and sideline the nationalist movements. Constituting a team for negotiations with a foreign country is not a matter for public opinion. It requires that we choose our best minds. It requires that we identify those who master the case file. It requires that we choose those who have integrity in the interests of the Southern Cameroons uppermost in their minds. It is the nationalist movements that have studied the problem from all angles over the years and come closer to understanding it fully. Dr. Simon Munzu seems to hold a mistaken belief that every Southern Cameroonian who meets his criteria necessarily understands the issues at stake and can validly represent the Southern Cameroons in any possible dialogue. That is not true. That is not true. It is not so. Should we not think of another formula for representation in the event of any dialogue under international auspices? These doubts and questions lead us to ask, is Dr. Simon Munzu setting up the people of the Southern Cameroons for more centuries of enslavement and suffering under La République du Cameroon? Remember, we are in this predicament today because of the monarchs. When Simon Munzu begins by borrowing the language of the colonizers, denying the illegal occupation, and asserting without proof a union in 1961, and claiming a harmonious life of the two peoples for 56 years, calling the Southern Cameroons two regions of La République du Cameroon as the occupier does, lecturing Southern Cameroonians that they should not yield to the temptation of violence in defending themselves against armed robbery. Was Dr. Munzu not one of those who helped compile the long list of grievances of Southern Cameroonians against La République du Cameroon at ACC 1 and AAC 2, I beg your pardon? Was he not one of those who helped draft the Bamenda Proclamation, giving La République du Cameroon a reasonable time, listen to me, a reasonable time within which to reply, short of which we would invoke the zero option. How can Dr. Munzu be trusted? Is Dr. Munzu taking our silent suffering for 56 years as consent to be enslaved, or as a sign of our happiness under foreign domination? He admits the persistent arrogance and domination of southern Cameroons by the Francophone elite in Yaoundé. He could dare, how could there be harmony in the midst of this persistent domination, marginalization, and assimilation? To Dr. Munzu then, the crisis began only 15 months ago. He pretends to be blind to the fact that for the past 56 years, the people of the southern Cameroons have simply been suffering in silence. And that throughout all human history, conscientization, awareness, raising and readiness for the fight against injustice takes time. Dr. Munzu is a lawyer. We invite him at the interim government, from the knowledge of international law, to present us the evidence of his alleged union between the Southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroon on 1st of October 1961. Dr. Munzu, the lawyer, has betrayed himself by pretending that there can be a solution to the Southern Cameroon's problem without any reference to international law. The principles of the United Nations or the African Union, that cannot happen without this. The Southern Cameroon's question cannot be solved by taking the Southern Cameroons out of the international law system or context, by beginning with the assumption that God had created the Southern Cameroons and its people to be eternally bound to La République du Cameroon, by pretending that the people of the Southern Cameroons are the first in history to defend themselves against foreign aggression, by preaching that to free a people from foreign domination, they need not suffer, by erroneously asserting that the Southern Cameroons or Ambazonia problem is a domestic problem. It is precisely Cameroon's attempt, or this is Cameroon's precise attempt to take the Southern Cameroon's problem out of context of international law that has prevented a solution in the first place. They want to discuss it by ignoring those same principles that every nation and every people in the world would invoke if their territory were encroached upon. If Dr. Simon Munzu believes in the law as a lawyer, if he believes in justice and fairness, if he believes that Cameroon, La République du Cameroon, has a right to defend its territory against foreign aggression, he must admit also that the people of the Southern Cameroons have a right to defend themselves against foreign aggression. And in this present case, La République du Cameroon, the aggression of La République du Cameroon, Munzu must accept that the Southern Cameroon's crisis can only find a lasting solution if it is settled on the basis of international principles or international law. In particular, the principles of the AU, African Union, and the United Nations, namely United Nations General Assembly Resolution 1514 of 1950, and of course Article 9 and 21 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, and Article 102.1 of the United Nations Charter. Dr. Munzu may retort that all of this may be raised during the so-called national dialogue, but this argument collapses in the context of his own fundamental assumptions that Ambazonians can only discuss within the context of one and indivisible Cameroon, or that the Southern Cameroon's problem is a domestic problem. That is a problem with his argument and his presentation. Furthermore, Dr. Munzu seems to believe in the illusion of a federation of two states equal in status between the Southern Cameroons and the Republic of Cameroon. We want to tell Mr. Munzu that no good governance, even by angels from heaven, can ensure equality between the two peoples of the Republic of Cameroon and Ambazonia or the Southern Cameroons. No reasonable person has ever suggested that two neighbors should break the fence that separates their two houses and join them together. Never, never ever. It never works. A territory is to a people what a house is to an individual. What the people of the Southern Cameroons are suffering today was predicted 56 years ago by people who had foresight, such as Dr. E.M.L. Ndele and Tafawa Balewa of Nigeria. Let Munzu not lead us into more centuries of suffering. We invite Dr. Munzu to revisit the history of the attempted federations in Africa between different territories. You will see that barely one is struggling very hard to survive of all the scores of attempts that have been made. How many times shall it be explained that it is an absolute impossibility for any form of equality to exist between the Southern Cameroons and the Republic of Cameroon? A federation between a sheep and a wolf can never be equal. A federation between a family of 2 and another of 10 can never be equal. Furthermore, the Southern Cameroons has no means of enforcing the terms of any agreement it reaches with the Republic of Cameroon. The promises made by a lion to a goat are meaningless. And note this, we cannot rely on any international community to be guarantors, precisely because we are suffering today, because even the countries that voted for our independence do not care anymore. Even the United Nations, which granted us independence in 1961, has turned its face the other way while we continue to suffer. We cannot anymore rely on international guarantors who will forget that they were guarantors when you need them the most. To put ourselves in any one Cameroon situation is to make ourselves an automatic minority in everything. In everything. We would just be replaying the sufferings we have gone through. It is therefore a game of numbers which no good governance, decentralization, or patchwork can cure or can heal. Again, Dr. Munzu's insinuation is that the people of the Southern Cameroons are yielding to the temptation to resort to violence in pursuing their objectives is absolute nonsense. As a lawyer, he knows the principles of self-defense. As a human being, he knows that there is a limit to what people will take. There is a limit to the amount of provocation and suffering a people will bear before they fight back. He also knows the saying that freedom is never given, it is taken. As a historian, he knows that the people of the Southern Cameroons are not the first in history to defend themselves against foreign aggression, atrocities, and brutality of illegal occupiers Dr. Munzu understands all of this. He's an educated man, one of the best that the Southern Cameroon has. All peoples in all continents and all over the world have always fought against foreign aggression. African tribes still go to war every day to defend their territories. It is said that when injustice becomes the law, resistance becomes a duty. Can Dr. Munzu tell the people of the Southern Cameroons how much more they could take from the persistent brutality, the rape, the torture, the killings, the disappearances, the mass graves, the burning of villages and towns, and enslavement from La République du Cameroon before they will wake up, before we, Southern Cameroonians, will wake up? The people of the Southern Cameroons have suffered all kinds of inhuman treatment without so much as throwing a stone on anyone for 56 years. Yet, Munzu seems to say we should continue to accept this enslavement for fear that the people for whom we fight will suffer. Dr. Munzu should not attempt to use the suffering of those for whom we fight as a reason not to fight. Absolutely not. We have gone past fear. The time we were afraid has gone. Fear is no more a factor in this revolution. People in desperation of willingness set themselves on fire. Others go on hunger strike. Others even kill themselves for the principles and values that are dear to them. As they say, he who does not fight for what he believes in does not deserve to live. What is life in slavery? Which human being with blood in his veins will not defend his house against armed robbers? Can Dr. Munzu tell us? Will Munzu fold his arms while armed robbers enter his house and rape his children and his wife, as La République du Cameroon is doing in the Southern Cameroons? Would Dr. Munzu allow that? How did Africa get its own freedom? Today, Munzu and the rest of us are enjoying the freedom that Africa won with blood and war, with suffering under terrible injustice. America, the French, La République du Cameroon, and all countries enjoying freedom today won it through war, blood, and violence. Would Munzu have told Africa then not to fight for its freedom? Munzu wants to lecture Southern Cameroonians about peace. Which people are as patient and peaceful as the people of the Southern Cameroons? Fellow Ambazonians, we would like to address two issues raised in Munzu's audio. Dr. Munzu asked the question, why we cannot tolerate the Anglophone and the Francophone diversity, the way we tolerate religious and other kinds of diversities in Cameroon. Assuming that the question is genuine, assuming that Dr. Munzu is honestly putting this question forward, we would like to respond to it. The simple reason is that other forms of diversity that are tolerated do not govern the state. They belong exclusively to the groups that practice them and do not interfere with the lives of others. Francophones and Anglophones do not disagree on what they eat, what religion they practice, what clothes they wear, but they will disagree vehemently, strongly on language, on laws, and everything relating to governance. Because governance requires that one system dictates to the other. That is a fact. It is so everywhere. The English and French state cultures cannot tolerate each other. Their value systems are entirely incompatible. If things were as Dr. Munzu supposes, It should be easy for the Francophone regime to say to Anglophones, and I quote, "Take over and govern us," end quote. But he sees that this is impossible. It has never happened, will never happen as far as Francophone remain majority. So why then does Munzu imagine that it is Anglophones with their own territory, system of education, and laws, values, and culture that should surrender to Francophones? Can Dr. Munzu give us one reason, just one reason, why Ambazonians should spend their entire life, generation after generation, fighting with la République du Cameroon? Is there anything holy in the unity that is kept only by force of arms, violence, intimidation, and fraud? Has mankind not rejected forced marriages? Why should they be kept alive amongst peoples, among the people of the Southern Cameroons and the French Cameroon? At the interim government, we request Dr. Munzu to answer us. The second issue Dr. Munzu raised is that Southern Cameroonians have been forced to take the independent position only by the dismissal of the Anglophone problem and the arrogance and domination of the Francophone elite. That is also not true. This is a very short-sighted view of Dr. Munzu. No, we are not advocating independence because of the dismissal of the Anglophone problem. Absolutely not. Even if it were admitted, there would be no way to resolve it. The arrogance and dismissal of the problem is only a measure or revelation of the nature of the people we are dealing with. It would take thousands of years for them to change. And because they will not change, the only solution is complete and total assimilation of Southern Cameroonians. That is a fact. We have seen it for 56 years. Why should two neighbors, each of whom has their own house, be fighting about who should govern who? We find it foolish and stupid and absurd that despite the evident peace, harmony, happiness, and fulfillment of life's purpose that will come from each of these people governing themselves within their own territory and being only good neighbors, our minds should be hijacked by an absurd notion of living under one flag through force and arms. No one has explained to themselves the reason for this dogma of one and indivisible Cameroon, for which Southern Cameroonians are being slaughtered on a daily basis. At the interim government, again, we are inviting Dr. Munzu to explain this to us. Fellow Ambazonians, we could go on and on, but it would serve no further purpose. We have exposed Dr. Munzu's misconceptions enough. And we believe that every reasonable person has been sufficiently educated by this reporter. Remain vigilant, because the enemy will use every means to try to derail our struggle for a free and sovereign Southern Cameroon. Only peace, joy, happiness, and fulfillment of the two peoples of la République du Cameroon and the Southern Cameroons would result from Southern Cameroon's independence. We must live free or die. Again, thanks for tuning in today. I believe you got the message. You take it home, spread the message. Let everybody know our position. If anything that I have done here, this also spells out our position on what form of dialogue that the interim government is going to endorse. And until we see that clearly articulated and presented with security measures taken, we are not, the interim government is not going to accept any form of dialogue that is set as a trap for all of us and to kill the revolution. Thank you for tuning in. On Friday, I will be here to take live questions. I will be here only to do questions and answers on Friday. And so please, if you have gotten any question that you want to ask the interim government, you want to know our position on things, you want to know our position on situations, or you want to know what is going on right now in the interim government, what we are planning, what we have in line to do, please send in your question and I will take it on Friday. I will be here on Friday at exactly 8 p.m. Amber time. Again, Friday, 8 p.m. Amber time. But I may be able to come up again one more time before Friday in case of any emergency. Again, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate your time. And please, again, take the message to our people. God bless you.